Today we're talking about the pineal gland, one of the most special organs in your body, giving you access to dimensions, realms of thought, and ability that you never even thought you had before. You see, 90% of your mind's capacity, thinking ability, is tied up in this little grain of rice sized gland that's in your brain. And today I'm going to give you, in 3 steps, the roadmap to activating the pineal gland and actually making a connection to infinite expansive awareness, also known as the power of God. Now, this isn't going to be some religious rant. I am simply a seeker of wisdom and have found some very special nuggets of wisdom that I'm going to share with you today, as well as the process I've been doing and a special story that comes to show the power of this pineal gland in changing your life. So with that being said, let's get right into the video. First things first. Have you ever thought of yourself outside of this physical being, this body that you inhabit? We are not just these physical beings that are walking around on the planet, interacting with our jobs, spending these little pieces of paper and money. These things are important because they're tethered to this reality. But the important thing to remember or realize is that you are not your physical body. And think about all the abilities that you have. The ability to dream, the ability to sense, that sixth sense, the ability to read people, the ability to have an intuition. None of these things reside in your physical body. And it's been scientifically proven now that there is awareness, a knowing that comes outside of ourselves. And in making a deeper connection with this, in understanding who we really are, we can truly step into our true power as human beings, which many of us have been disconnected from. You know, Einstein once said, the intuitive mind is a gift, and a rational mind is the servant. We have created a society where we have celebrated the servant and forgotten about the gift. And today we're talking about exactly that, the gift, your pineal gland, activating these systems, energetic systems within your body. So how do we start? Well, we have to start with the understanding of who you are as a being, a physical being. Beyond your physical body, let's say that is you, right? That is you just working your 9 to 5, going to work, maybe experiencing heavy amounts of anxiety and stress, as many people are nowadays. And then realizing one day that you are also an emotional being, as many of us are. I'm not much of an artist, okay? But there's an emotional body behind your physical being. Emotions are, of course, something that you can't see, can't taste. You can't really feel emotions with your 5 senses that you've been given, right? But you can feel them. So there must be something else here beyond your physical. And lastly, you are a spiritual being. You're a spiritual being. Have you ever had like mystical insights, or some people call them like downloads of information? Have you ever had that? Or something that seemed like so like delusional, and then you decided to do it anyway? These are your 3 beings that reside within you. And understanding how to harmonize, how to unify these 3 beings, you will unlock your true power. You know, this is something that I had to go through this journey myself a couple years ago. I was a paramedic. Many of you do know my story who have subscribed. But I was a paramedic and I was working long shifts. And I don't know what it was, but I drove myself to picking up shifts even on my days off. So I was working like 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts, half of those being night shifts. And slowly I felt this feeling coming up inside of me, an incongruence. It's kind of like your soul screaming at you to stop doing this, stop taking on so much abuse. But how do we cultivate awareness of these things? Is to begin this process of this inner journey that many of us go on. Joseph Campbell, who's a famous philosopher, mystic, he talks about this. He talks about going into your innermost cave. And he says, in the depths of your innermost cave the darkest parts of your innermost cave is the treasure you will seek. I believe this treasure is this realization to be in harmony with yourself. And it's a journey. I'm still on this journey. I have by no means have I completely figured this out, but this is the roadmap. We're going to go down this process of activation. We're going to go down this road of activating this pineal gland that will begin this process of helping us understand ourselves better and harmonizing these three aspects of ourselves within us. So your pineal gland is right there, and then you have, the Bible mentions this is mentioned in Eastern philosophies, but you'll see things referred to as the 7 chakras, the 7 seals. These are not, especially when it comes to the Bible, I think a lot of it gets taken for physicality, like for what it is, when it's actually a mystical book. It has allegories and symbolism, deep symbolism within it, and it lays out the path. Again, I'm by no means a Christian or identified with any kind of religion like that, but there's deep wisdom in this book here, and it lays out, just like the 7 chakras do, these 7 natures within you to reach these 7 chakras. And this is a process, my friend. This is a process that you're going to go on to begin understanding who you are. You see, many of us are in the survival paradigm. Many of us are in survival mode, right? We're trying to get our needs met. We're trying to get the bills paid. We're just trying to move on with our life, right? Go through the matrix, the control system that we're all a part of. But there's levels above this. And as you get to these levels, you'll begin, just like levels in a game, you'll begin unlocking new abilities and new understandings within yourself. Higher consciousness is not what many gurus or spiritual people will proclaim, that you begin to start meditating and suddenly you'll just get this flash of insight and become somebody new. It is actually a process of understanding yourself and moving through these levels. First, realizing where you're at in the survival paradigm, then moving up into call this pleasure and this is like the sexual creative energy, pleasure, right? Your relationship to these things. Then your personal power, owning your personal power. This is something I actually struggled with for quite some time. I had actually physical manifestations of this, physical feelings when in my sacral region, right below the heart, about 4 inches below the heart, there's the sacral region. And you may feel, feelings of guilt, feeling trapped, feeling powerless, feeling the need for a lot of control or having no control. These reside in this area right here. And I'm going to show you through a certain process of how to clear this energy. Because remember, you're an emotional being. You have energy in motion. That's what emotion means. Energy in motion. And we're going to learn how to clear this out. That's your personal power. Then is the heart. The heart is your feeling ability, compassion, love. Think about where we are on the planet today. Think about all the lack of love, the lack of compassion, the lack of feeling. This is because many of us have become disconnected from our hearts. And the heart plays a pivotal role in actually shaping your reality. The projections of emotion, energy in motion, comes through the heart. And we're going to talk about this because emotion, of course, can be formed here in your lower nature, right? Your relationship to power, your relationship to pleasure, your relationship to survival, all create specific kinds of emotions that then get channeled up into the heart, and then something special happens. And so this is your higher nature. When you begin going on this journey, raising your level of consciousness, the pineal gland will get activated in this process. And this is where you begin to own your voice. This is expression. And then you have this is your third eye. Now the third eye is your pineal gland. It's a very special gland because even on a scientific basis, it's been proven to have access to your other beings, your emotional and spiritual beings. And science has even shown us that this pineal gland is actually a cluster of about 7 billion crystals in this little rice grain-like structure, and actually has the ability to perceive of light beyond the wavelengths of light that we can actually perceive. And there's actually a famous quote in the Bible that comes from Jesus himself that goes something like, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. And of course, the pineal gland produces a special hormone, a special chemical called melatonin. Melatonin is responsible for your sleep and wake cycles. It gets produced in the dark when there's no light. Think about it. When there's no physical light around you entering through your eyeballs into this light deceleration machine called your brain, when that turns off, the third eye activates and is beginning to produce melatonin in darkness, which also the pineal gland has this ability to interface with electromagnetic fields around us. But that's for another video. And think about what we do when our eyes are closed. We're sleeping, and when we're sleeping, we're dreaming. And dreams are just other forms of reality because there are many versions of that. And so how can we activate this pineal gland when, if we're not sleeping, we want to be active in this process? The way to do this is through meditation. And I'm not talking about some woo-woo thing where you're going to sit with your legs crossed, and you got to do none of that. In fact, Jesus again said himself, take no thought. Take no thought. And that the temple is built in silence. The temples being your temples. What's between your temples? Your mind, your brain. In silence is when your temple, these words are all allegory, can be built. And so what you want to do is, in darkness, ideally, to turn off all light sources and to close your eyes and to go inwards. And if you've never done this before, the first thing that's going to happen to you is your subconscious mind will begin screaming at you. It will begin screaming at you as we're going through life every day, going from one thing to the next, opening our phone, going from one app to the next, closing it, going from one place to the next, jumping in our car, going to work, doing one thing to the next. Our conscious mind, we're producing conscious thought every day. But imagine if we had to remember every conscious thought that we were going through our daily lives, many of us would not want to be here anymore. Let's just say that. So what happens is your conscious mind, which is the 10%, takes the thoughts and moves them to the subconscious, which sort of acts as the memory, if you will. It can do a lot more things, but it will act as the memory of the conscious thoughts. And it will say, hey, you know what, Jane? You know what, Anne? You know what, Jake? I will take your conscious thought and I'll hang on to it for you. And we'll figure it out later. We'll figure it out later. This is actually how PTSD begins to get formed as well. When you have traumatic incidents that get suppressed and your subconscious mind says, you know what, man? We will figure it out later. Let's put it in this box. And what happens over time is, as more thoughts, more open thought loops, because we never finish processing these thoughts. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, you go through some emotion, you shove that down, you keep going on with your day. It gets stored in the subconscious mind. And so eventually, the subconscious mind will begin projecting at you anxiety, maybe even physical manifestations, physical symptoms in your body that are these unprocessed thoughts. And so what you do in meditation is you let the subconscious mind scream at you. It's going to give you all, and this is why a lot of people don't like meditation, because of that initial reaction from the subconscious mind to just start projecting all these open thought loops of things that you didn't want to think about in the past. But here's the thing. In letting these thoughts come up and looking at them as an observer, because remember, you are not your physical body. You're an emotional being and a spiritual being. To look at these things as an observer and to let them pass, let the feeling pass through you. Instead of you don't really need to think about anything. To let these come up and pass through you. Eventually, you'll be left with no thought. This is what Jesus meant. Take no thought. And that only then can the process begin of you getting to this higher level of awareness, getting to this higher level of conscious thought through the pineal gland. And something special happens here when all these thoughts have been processed, when all these things become closed loops. Finally, I know now. It's all good. Everything's going to be all right. It helps to have some mantras as well, and I'll give you one at the end of this video that you can use. But what happens here is when the third eye gets activated, you get access to what's called infinite expansive awareness. This is the mind of God. Because remember, you were created in God's image. We've made a big mistake in creating religions, institutions that have now made God in our image, as if there is a God that is punishing, as if there is a God that is has all these human traits and emotions. It doesn't exist. What does exist is this energy, is an electricity. You're an electrical being. Energy in motion. You're an emotional being. You're an energetic being. You see what I'm saying? And this power, this God force, is a type of electricity, and it can be used for good or bad. You could take electricity in the hands of a masterful electrician, someone who has activated this process, and they can light up a whole city. Or you can take this electricity and give it to me, and I have no electrical knowledge whatsoever. I could burn this house down, right? It's just a power, it's an energy. And so when we get access to this infinite expansive awareness, we actually get access to interfacing with this energy. The pineal gland gets activated, and this activates the last chakra, which gives you access to divine consciousness. And another word for divine consciousness is just infinite expansive awareness. This resides in the right hemisphere of your mind. You have the left brain, that's mainly that 10% that I was talking about. It's responsible for making sense of patterns, rational thought, seeing things in the version of reality that we're in. And then there's the right brain, which is responsible for that infinite, expansive, creative, otherworldly, outerworldly type of thought. Actually, artists, I feel, are very connected to the right brain because they think of something in their mind's eye. If somebody else tells you, in their mind's eye, they're talking about this light, this invisible light that comes through the chakra that gives them that awareness. And then they turn it into something physical, a beautiful piece of art. Very much a metaphor for being connected to this creative force. And so we do that. And so the subconscious now gets access to infinite, expansive awareness. But only when you're empty, right? Only once you've taken no thought, you've processed all the open thought loops, you've let your subconscious mind scream at you for all the half-processed thoughts that were just shoved back there. And then you'll actually feel a sense of lightness. Like when I began processing my trauma, going through PTSD, I do feel after the fact, after I've gone through this journey, I am much more in tune with my body, I'm in tune with myself, and I'm in tune with how others are interacting with me. And also having this inner compass that's sharper than ever when I have to make a decision, which may help you if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in this process of creating anything in this physical reality, to have this tool, this pineal gland that is now activated, to give you that intuitive guidance, even though you may consciously question it, but going along with the process, leading you to ever more greater and greater opportunities in your life, is the most valuable tool you could have in these fields. And so infinite expansive awareness is also known as your super consciousness. It's like the Google Cloud. Think about this. Have you ever had a thought that came to you in the shower, an idea for a great business idea, and then you said, whatever, and you moved on with your day? Weeks go by, months go by, and then you see somebody executed on this idea that you had and have become very successful at it. I see this all the time in my life with ideas that I'm working on, things I'm thinking about will show up in my external reality. That's because we all have access to this body of knowledge. And if you don't act on it, it's kind of like a kite. It'll fly by you, and if you don't grab the string and pull it down towards you, it'll keep drifting along till someone else grabs that string and pulls it in, right? This is why I keep a notebook or cell phone always beside my shower, always beside my bedside, because these are some of the most valuable ideas that you may have in your life, the most aligned ideas that you may have in your life. And it's important sometimes to just act on them instead of rationally questioning them. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.